As the American people deserve to have every Epstein file released with no redactions whatsoever, period. And I'm pushing for that both privately and publicly, just so you know.
Stop. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Original search warrant was selectively composed to try to protect Epstein, let people ask questions, figure out what the heck is going on. Was Jeffrey Epstein an intelligence asset? Now, the Israeli government has come out and said, nope, he was not one of ours.
In China and doing a lot of work with the victims from trafficking, work with a orphanage in Romania. It was nothing that I was ever groomed for. It was nothing that was ever on my radar.
Nobody was supposed to notice this. Not the warning, not the timing, and definitely not the deletions. Charlie Kirk has spent years speaking loudly, confidently, and publicly about powerful institutions. But according to multiple online discussions, just before Epstein-related leaks began resurfacing again, Charlie allegedly issued a quiet warning, one that never made headlines. At the same time, internet users began noticing something else. Posts disappearing, timelines changing, and old content quietly removed. And one name kept showing up in those conversations: Erika. Why did certain things vanish right as Epstein's name started trending again? Why did Charlie suddenly go silent on a topic he once addressed head-on? And was this all just coincidence? Or preparation? Tonight's story isn't about accusations, it's about timing, patterns, and the fear of what might come out next. Because when people start deleting the past, it usually means they're worried about the future. Charlie Kirk built his reputation on being outspoken. Supporters praise him for confronting uncomfortable topics. Critics argue he thrives on controversy. But even critics agree on one thing: Charlie rarely backs away from public debate. That's why what allegedly happened behind the scenes caught so many people off guard. According to anonymous online claims and secondhand accounts shared on forums and social platforms, Charlie reportedly issued a private warning to people around him shortly before renewed Epstein-related discussions began circulating again. This wasn't a speech. It wasn't a podcast moment. It wasn't recorded. It was quiet. The alleged message wasn't specific. There were no names mentioned publicly, no documents shown. But the tone, according to those repeating the story, was serious, almost cautious. Be careful, was reportedly the message. Things people think are over aren't. Now, on its own, that could mean anything. Epstein-related topics have resurfaced many times before. But what made this moment different was the timing. Within weeks, Epstein's name began trending again. Old cases were being re-examined, archived documents were being reshared, and a new generation of online researchers, armed with better tools, started connecting dots that had previously gone unnoticed. This wasn't mainstream media driving the conversation. It was the internet, independent accounts, archive websites, long-forgotten screenshots. And as this happened, Charlie's public tone shifted. Viewers noticed he stopped addressing Epstein-related topics altogether. Interviews that might have touched on accountability suddenly avoided the subject. Questions were redirected. Conversations moved on quickly. Supporters said it was strategic. Critics said it was suspicious. But what really raised eyebrows wasn't Charlie's silence. It was what others were doing at the same time. People began quietly cleaning up their digital past. Old posts disappeared. Comments were removed. Entire threads vanished overnight. And that's where Erika entered the conversation. Online users began pointing out that several posts associated with Erika, posts from years now being re-examined, were suddenly gone. No explanation, no public statement, just removed. Was it routine cleanup? Or was it a reaction to something she feared could be misinterpreted? That question alone was enough to fuel speculation. Because in the age of screenshots, deletion doesn't erase. It invites suspicion. And according to many observers, this looked less like coincidence and more like anticipation. The internet never forgets. It just waits. As Epstein-related discussions gained traction again, online researchers did what they always do. They checked the archives. And that's when inconsistencies started appearing. Posts that once existed no longer did. Captions had been edited. Timelines didn't line up anymore. Archive websites confirmed it. Changes had been made recently, not years ago. Erika's online presence became a focal point, not because of direct accusations, but because of timing. the deletions appeared to align almost perfectly with renewed interest in Epstein-related leaks. To supporters, this meant nothing. People are allowed to protect their privacy. Old posts can be misunderstood. The internet can be cruel. But critics weren't convinced. They argued that if there was nothing concerning, why delete anything at all? Why not leave the record intact and address questions directly? This is where digital panic becomes visible. When powerful or well-connected individuals sense a narrative forming, the instinct isn't always to explain, it's to minimize exposure. Lawyers often advise silence, publicists recommend cleanup, and social media becomes a liability rather than an asset. Charlie's alleged warning now seemed less abstract. If he truly believed new information was coming, even indirect association could become damaging. Not legally, socially. Because Epstein's name doesn't need proof to destroy reputations. Association alone can be enough. That's why deletion matters, not because it proves wrongdoing, but because it signals fear of interpretation. Meanwhile, rumors spread that new documents were circulating privately. Not everything hits the media immediately. Some information passes through journalists, attorneys, and insiders first. And even if names aren't listed clearly, proximity can be devastating. Who attended what event? Who knew whom? Who stayed silent? The internet thrives on these questions. Charlie's continued silence only amplified speculation. Was he protecting himself, others, or simply waiting out the storm? No one could say for sure. But one thing became clear. This wasn't just another Epstein cycle. This felt more targeted, more methodical, and people were responding accordingly. Here's the reality many don't want to admit. Even if new Epstein leaks contain no new crimes, no new charges, and no direct accusations, they can still destroy lives. Because public judgment doesn't wait for courts. Charlie's alleged warning may not have been about guilt. It may have been about inevitability, about knowing how quickly narratives form once information, real or rumored, enters the public space. In scandals tied to Epstein, 3 questions always follow. Who was involved? Who knew? Who tried to erase their past? That last question is where Erika's alleged deletions matter most. Once the internet believes someone is hiding something, the burden of proof reverses. Silence becomes suspicious. Privacy becomes avoidance. Charlie's position is equally complex. If he speaks, every word is dissected. If he stays silent, people assume fear. There is no winning move. And the longer Epstein's shadow stretches, the harder it becomes to escape association, whether deserved or not. This is why the warning, if real, is so important. It suggests awareness, not of guilt, but of danger. Danger in a world where screenshots live forever. Where archives outlast explanations. Where timing matters more than intent. If new leaks emerge, deletions won't stop speculation. Silence won't calm it. And the internet will do what it always does. Fill the gaps with assumptions. Whether Charlie was warning others, or himself, we may never know. But one thing is certain. Once Epstein's name enters a conversation, it never leaves quietly. Now it's your turn. Do you believe Charlie Kirk's warning was real, or just internet rumor? Were Erika's deletions a smart move for privacy, or did they only raise more questions? Drop your honest opinion in the comments. I read them all. If you want more deep dive timelines, internet archive breakdowns, and stories mainstream media avoids, like this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. Because stories like this don't end with one video. They unfold slowly, and when the next leak drops, only those paying attention will understand why the warning mattered.